Hello, my name is Michele, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice.
Have you ever been in a place where you were getting all the jobs you wanted and dreamed of? Everything you'd been working for was coming to fruition. And the challenge is that everything came in at once. And now you are completely overwhelmed. Maybe you can even feel your heart rate speeding up, and maybe a light sweat breaking out as I say these words. Well, if so, this is the podcast for you. We're going to talk about how to manage and overcome the overwhelm in your business.
Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice.
Okay, so I am getting call after call after call from successful business owners who are overwhelmed. Perhaps many of you thought that the only time designers and workrooms and creatives call me is when they're in trouble financially. And that might be the case for some of them, but honestly, not the majority. By and large, I am contacted by very successful business owners when they're so successful that they either feel like they're drowning or they have too much to do and don't know how to do it, and they see that they're moving into the deep end. So in today's podcast, I'm going to share with you 6 steps to managing and overcoming overwhelm in your business and in your life. So grab a pen and paper because you might want to take a few notes. Okay, number 1, stop, pause, and breathe. Seriously, stop right now, and I want you to take 3 deep cleansing breaths. We're going to take oxygen deep into your lungs. Go ahead. What I want you to do is put your hand on your belly, and I want you to feel it as you expand and breathe deeply. Feel the movement out and then the movement back in. Just take a minute and do that. Do you feel that? And do you know why I'm asking you to do this? I know you've probably never listened to a financial or a profit podcast that told you to breathe deeply, but I am telling you it works. And here's why I'm asking you to do it. Because it not only creates a calming effect, but it oxygenates your blood in such a way that it feeds your brain and allows you to think more clearly. See, when we feel stress, we tend to start shallow breathing, which is just right up in the top of your lungs, not deep down into the bottom of the lungs. And while we can do that for a bit, we can get away with it. If we are not careful, it becomes our default way of breathing. We're doing all this shallow breathing. And that leads to low oxygen, tiredness, and honestly, the ability to hyperventilate more easily. I've been to visit many professionals during times of stress, and every single time I was told that my breathing was shallow, and I realized that I'd made it a habit. And so now I take more time to stop, close my eyes, be present in the moment, relax, and breathe. So when you get stuck, or if you get stuck, because it's going to happen, what I want you to do is come back to this as your number 1. So as we move through the 6 steps to managing and overcoming overwhelm, I want you to come back to this one every time. I try to do this at a minimum in the morning before I begin work, and again after lunch. I do it at any point that I get stuck or stressed, or that I can feel it. You can almost feel it coming from your gut all the way up, that stress, right? I try to stop right then and breathe. Shut my eyes and try to make my body relax. And honestly, if doing that 3 times and getting 3 full breaths is not enough to create calm and relaxation, go ahead and do it again. The next thing is to take stock of what needs to be done. You know that question about if your brain was a computer, how many tabs would you have open? Well, I bet if you're like me and other highly creative people, then your tab bar is full. And I'm not even kidding. I met with a business owner last week, and it was interesting. She brought her computer, and every tab she had, I swear, was open on that computer, every tab possible. For real, there were at least 30 open tabs at the top. I'd never seen anything quite like it. There could have easily been even more than 30. There were so many that they were so scrunched together you couldn't even see the icon. And I felt overwhelmed just looking at her browser. And so how do we go through and clear all the clutter? We write everything down. Personally, I got rid of my paper to-do list and I moved over to Asana. I am a planner, an organizer, and I like to write things down. And when I do something, I like to write it down and then mark it off. But what I realized was I kept moving things from paper list to paper list. They kept transferring as they didn't get done. And then that felt overwhelming and cluttered. And so while I might also have some of my work in folders in Asana, when I moved over to that, I just love the basic to-do task list. Just the get these things done, check them off, and move on. Just writing everything down and allowing it to flow out of my head, it allows me to see what's in front of me better and what needs to be done. I can then go into my Asana to-do list, and I can put in any dependencies, and I can also put in the date that it is due. And this allows me to kind of forget it for now and focus on what's most important. I can also let my brain rest because I've not forgotten anything. There are 2 tabs that always stay open on my desktop during a business day. One is my calendar because I'm very calendar driven, and the other is Asana. And when I keep all the to-dos in my head, they seem to swirl, become overwhelming, and morph into bigger and more difficult problems. My mind is so focused on not forgetting these issues, it has no capacity to solve them. So when I've written them down and I only allow my brain to focus on the next thing in line to be worked on, the capacity to solve the problem expands and it doesn't feel as difficult. Honestly, the solutions come a lot faster. And my problem-solving skills are highly trained on one thing at a time. Remember that myth that multitasking works, because it doesn't. Okay, number 3. Set your boundaries and your mindset. This is, in my opinion, one of the most important and somewhat difficult steps. It requires us to take action in a different way. When we set boundaries, we're saying, in effect, here's the safe area that I can work in. Think about if it were your yard and you were allowing your children to go out and play. You maybe put up a fence in the backyard, or tell them, here's our the lines of our home, don't go past this. Those boundaries are a safe place. And so I want you to think of boundaries not as being limiting, but as being safe. And so you may have to set boundaries like I do around your location, your time, your thoughts, everything. And that's why I chose to group this with mindset. What we do and what we think and who we let have access to us matters. And so here are some healthy boundaries that I think are healthy, and I've created them in my business. The first one is I spend the first hour in my business every day working on my business, not on client-facing work. Now I get up really early, so that allows me to get this done before I start working with the first client at 9 a.m. I've already checked all my emails and gotten my day started with my clients by 8 a.m., so I'm in the office by 7 a.m. just because of the way my day works to get it done. This allows me to be clear-headed and to move my business forward and make sure that my business will be sustainable. See, you and I, we are only as good as our businesses are sustainable. So after the hour that I spend focusing on Scarlet Thread Consulting, I then can focus on my clients for the rest of the day with ease. I'm not always worried about, am I going to get something done for my business? And when I try to do it the opposite way, which is focus on my client issues from the moment I walk into the office, I find that I then spend the entire day putting out fires or solving problems for everybody, but for my own, instead of for my own business. And this boundary is not selfish. It's actually taking care of the very resource that is instrumental in solving your client problems, and that is your business. Another boundary I have is around interruptions. I have all of my notifications and dings on my computer shut off. I don't want to know about it, and I don't need to know about it. When I have scheduled time in my day, which I do, to check my social media or to check my email, it's all going to be sitting there. I mean, I'm from the day when we didn't even have those things, and I live life just fine. Those dings drive me crazy. They are popping up all over the place, and I'll tell you, if you think they're not a distraction, Try to film a podcast and have the dings coming up everywhere. It does distract you. So if it distracts you when you're talking to me or when we're coaching or having a podcast or when you're talking to somebody else, it is distracting you even when you are alone, because it's taking your thoughts somewhere else for a moment. I want you to try it. Just try it for a couple of days. Shut it all down. Turn off all notifications, Skype, Dropbox, email, social media apps. Just turn them off. I turn them off on my phone and I turn them off on my computer. Just done with it. You're going to be able to focus so much more instead of acting like Pavlov's dog every time you hear the ding. And honestly, it helps reduce FOMO. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I feel like I'm in control of when I check those things and how much time I spend on them. And it's easier to not go down the rabbit hole of social media or anything else. Just give it a try. I promise you it can change things. Another boundary that I have is that whole tab conversation. Remember when I talked to you about my client who had every tab in the world open at the top? I try not to have any tabs open that I'm not actively working on, so that it clears my online space. So I'm trying to clear my head space and trying to clear my online space. Of course, I try to keep my desk cleaned up as well. And so if I'm not working actively in that tab, other than my Asana and my calendar, I try to have it shut. I also set a boundary in what I allow to go through my mind. Huge. And this is where mindset comes in. I write affirmations for difficult challenges I need to face. If I've got a challenge in marketing, I write an affirmation. If I've got challenges around my finances or something I need to understand or do, I try to write some affirmations so that I can control what I'm feeding my mind. And then this gives me confidence and strength to move forward. If I'm working on something and another to-do comes into my mind, I stop, I move over to the Asana tab, and I make note of it. Sometimes I might make note of it on the piece of paper, like up in the top corner, and then I go back later and add it to Asana. It's just based on what I'm doing. But I don't let it take me down the path of solving it. I don't go chasing that issue at that time unless it is absolutely critical to what I'm working on. And that takes discipline, because sometimes we have a thought that comes into our mind while we're working on A. We run off and chase it. We never get A done, and it really had nothing to do with it. It was a separate, thought or task or need. I also try to take note of how I feel when I feel like a very strong emotion coming on. So if I feel like ecstatic or sad or fearful or stressed, I stop and try to take that thought captive, and I ask myself, what is the feeling that I'm feeling? Why might I be feeling this? And is there a truth or a lie behind it? What is the belief system behind why I'm feeling it? And is it true? Because sometimes I can feel like, here, I'll give you an example. I have quite a few people who say to me, I feel like I'm behind. And I ask them, behind what? Who created the idea that you should be in a certain place? Was that something that you created? Do you feel behind because you're looking at your competition? What's making you feel behind? And is the statement behind it true? And I would say 9.9 times out of 10, they're not behind. And if they are behind, it was because they had to make other choices as they were moving along. So just be very careful in what you're thinking and what you're feeling. I'm not telling you that it's wrong. I'm telling you to capture it and to analyze it and to understand what's happening that's causing you to have these feelings, so that if it's not a true statement that is fueling that feeling, you have a chance to change it. Okay, number 4, focus on the one next thing. When we are overwhelmed, we tend to focus on the long to-do list, on the depth and the breadth and the width of everything we have to do, and that's when it swirls in our head and it morphs into this great big thing. I want you to focus on the next one thing. So when I have my list of things to do that I've dumped into my project management application, I start analyzing them. I remove them from floating in my head and I write them down. Here's what else that does. It separates the things that need to be done from me as a person. I now can feel the separation. When I hold them in my head, that they feel like a part of me. This is a separator. And so now I can easily assess them in visual form and all of them at one time and start making decisions. Usually I choose to do what I believe is most important, which is either driven by a due date or because it's the one action with the most trickle-down actions, and it's going to reduce my stress the most. So I might look at that list, and if I don't have anything that is tightly date-driven, I look at it and say, what is the one thing on this list that if I get it done is going to give me the most stress relief? And that's the thing I try to do. And at this time, what I also do is identify the next action that I think. So I only try to maybe hold 2 actions in my brain at a time. Here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm going to do next. Then when I finish the first task, I go back to the list and I go, was the second thing that I thought I was going to do, is it the first thing now? And if not, then I look over the list and make a different selection, and that's okay. So, you know, this is always dynamic. It is not a static list. You didn't write it down and you're done. New things are being added all the time, and the circumstances around you and dependencies are changing. And so sometimes you might need to reorganize or rearrange based on priorities, and that's okay. So hold this list lightly and let it guide you, but don't feel like you're owned by your to-do list. And another big consideration, I look at everything I wrote down and ask myself, what happens if I don't do this? Or if I don't do it by my pre-planned due date? If the consequences are low or nothing, I might either push out the date or take it off my list altogether and just not do it. As entrepreneurs, we often can find ourselves creating busy work and not focusing on the most important work. You are in charge of the to-do list, and so we want to make it work for you. All right, number 5, delegate. Give work away. Everything that needs to be done might really need to be done, but it doesn't all have to be done by you. As you grow your business, there'll be no way for you to do it all alone. And so to delegate means to give the work to the best resource to get it done well. Educate them, set expectations, and then let it go. You know, this is not dumping it on them and not telling them what you want and how you want it done. You definitely have to go through that process. So you might want to consider Upwork or some other similar resource for hiring. You might want to get an employee. Maybe it's just a contractor with an expertise that you don't have. Your time is very important, and it needs to be spent on the most important work, not the busy work or the items that are not in your wheelhouse. And so when you look at that long list of things to do, it certainly makes it easier for you to think about what you might be able to hand off. Businesses shift and change. And so if the business model you've been working under no longer serves you, this is number 5, change it. Change your pricing, change your pricing structure, up-level your ideal client, your marketing materials. Look for ways to work less, produce more or better, and make more money. We are constantly evaluating and analyzing our businesses for maximum potential. So don't let overwhelm shut you down. Remember, good is the enemy of best. So choose the best work and the best clients for where you are. You don't have to say yes to everything. So go back, review your why, review your company values and strengths, and choose your best yes for now. Now, I said constantly evaluate, and I mentioned changing your pricing and perhaps your pricing structure. Listen, when all the work is coming in and you're overwhelmed, that's a good time to raise your prices. This usually indicates that demand is high, and you still want to be fair and reasonable in your pricing. But if you are in that level of demand, prices go up. When supply is more than demand, prices go down. It's a model that we all use, so use it. This is also a great time to be able to articulate the value that you and your firm bring to the table. Know who you are, what you do, and how greatly you do it. Express that to your ideal client. It will resonate with them if you're using their language, and they'll be willing to pay to get the outcome and the transformation you promise. Know what it currently costs you to do business. Your resources may cost more in a time like this, and that needs to be passed along in your pricing. Your service levels may be up due to the supply chain disruptions, right? Price for it. If you are pricing like you were in March, yet you're having to do so much more in calls and follow-up and service for your clients now, you're losing money. Overwhelm is real, and it can stop you in your tracks. And then it creates this idea of guilt because you're finally getting everything you want, everything you worked for. It's just all coming in at one time. And it doesn't have to be that way. So what I want you to do is be willing to take a step back. Take that deep breath. Write it all down. Create some boundaries. Focus on the next one thing. Delegate what you can. Evaluate. Raise your prices. All the things. Recognize that this is coming, and then recognize when you're there. Go through the steps. Go back to the deep breathing over and over, even if you have to interject it between every step. Go ahead and do that. And listen, if it is still too much and you still can't get clarity and you still feel like you're in that muddy middle and you need help, get assistance. Please reach out to me at scarletthreadconsulting.com and book a discovery call. Let me help you. Helping businesses alleviate the overwhelm and scale with ease is my superpower. And of course, to be profitable in the process. So let's do it together. Plan for growth and profit because it doesn't happen by accident.